Welcome to Tagged Beyond the Award, the podcast that celebrates innovation, excellence, and leadership. Each episode dives into inspiring stories behind the nominees and winners of the TAG Awards, uncovering the breakthroughs, challenges, and triumphs that define their journey. Whether it's cutting-edge technology, transformative products, or visionary leadership, we're here to explore what it means to stand out and shape the future of your industry. Let's go beyond the award and into the heart of innovation. Here's your host, Justin Starbird.
Welcome to another episode of Tagged Beyond the Award. Today we have the pleasure of welcoming our guest, Omar Ford, the editor-in-chief of Medical Device and Diagnostic Industry, better known as MD+DI, a leading publication for professionals in the medical device and MedTech sectors. With over a decade of experience in medical technology journalism, Omar has been at the forefront of reporting on groundbreaking innovations and industry trends. Under his editorial leadership at MD+DI, he continues its mission to assist MedTech professionals in developing products and meet complex regulatory and market demands. This year, I am excited to welcome Omar to our esteemed panel of judges for the 2025 TAG Awards for MedTech, and he gets to bring his extensive knowledge and keen insight to the evaluation of these pioneering medical technologies. Omar, that's a mouthful, man. Thank you for joining me today.
Sure, anytime, anytime. And when you said over a decade of experience, I was like, gosh, I feel old. I remember when I first started doing this, my hair was all black. Now it's subtly becoming gray. Well, not subtly anymore, but it's quickly becoming gray. So
Yeah,
thanks
I
for that
feel you there.
introduction. Yeah.
My beard used to be nice and dark. Now it is all white. It moved beyond the gray. It's like so I feel you there, man. That's all right though. That means all those it's all experience, right? That's what that means.
Yeah, sure. That's what they tell you. Yeah.
I like to think of it as we make the mistakes so others don't have to, and then you're writing about it and I'm talking about it. Often, it gives people a chance so that they don't have to do the same thing that we did.
Exactly.
What made you want to start writing about MedTech and getting into this space?
Oh gosh, so that's a funny story right there. So I initially started my career as a beat reporter for small newspapers, and I don't know if your audience or anyone knows, but that's not a very lucrative position, right? They hook you in by they tell you you can affect change, you can be this crusader of social justice by being on a newspaper. And well, in 2006, that line didn't work once I got married. And my wife said, "Hey, you got to do something more. We can't live off of this salary." So I started looking for, I always wanted to write, I always wanted to report, and just started looking for just other opportunities to kind of stay in my wheelhouse, and saw an ad in the newspaper back then, in the AJC in the newspaper. I
That's
know
right.
that's kind of unheard of now. I don't think there was a LinkedIn, but I saw one for AHC Media, and it was that company doesn't exist anymore, but the brand that they were pushing was Medical Device Daily, and I applied for it, and it was it was an amazing opportunity where I learned so much, but I didn't have a background in med tech or healthcare. But you
Sure.
learn pretty quickly about the device industry and healthcare you're pretty much thrown into the fire. So yeah,
Sure.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, and the industry itself is, it's pretty small. I mean, at the end of the day, it feels like the industry is big. I mean, it's, whatever multitude of hundreds of billions of dollars, but at the end of the day, the players, are small, and or the number of players are small, and what you're reporting on, it's pretty dynamic.
Yeah. What helped me, I think, understand the industry a little bit more, and how this differed from just traditional B2B business to business reporting was my editor at the time when I was at Medical Device Daily, a guy by the name of Don Long. He's since passed, but he really explained it to me in a way that helped me understand the nuances, right? It was you wanna follow the companies and the products.
Yeah.
Each one tells a story, and you wanna follow that story. The people change in and out, executive C-suite, what have you. They're going to come and go in regulators, but you really want to follow that. You really want to look and see what the companies are doing, what's happening with the products. Now, when I came to Informa in 2018, um, Jamie Hartford, she's our senior content director. She kind of fleshed it out a little bit more for my, for the understanding. You want to look at the connective tissues, the trends that these companies, that these devices are a part of, and that's kind of what separates it from just, I would say any other industry. Each product, each company tells its own unique story, but at the same time, there's connected tissue as to telling you why we got to this point. You know, why is Medtronic, really bullish about renal denervation right now for uncontrolled hypertension? And that's because they tried for a decade to get approval for it. But if you just pick up the press release and you just report the story, oh, they got FDA approval for this, you're missing that history, you're missing that background. And since then they've gone through, I think they had Omar Ishrak, he was the first CEO, and I think Martha now is the CEO of the company. But the people change, but the devices and the company, what it stands for, they don't, and that's what you have to follow, and that's what makes it so attractive for me.
Well, I agree with you.
Yeah.
The stories are so unique,
Mhm,
and because this industry is so regulated,
mhm.
it does take a long time. So you go through iterations of who is in the C-suite, but what doesn't change is the products that are in the pipeline, right?
Exactly.
And being able to share those stories, explain, where it came from, how they came to fruition, and what's next, right? What problem are they trying to solve? I always find it interesting right now. Now here we are starting to evaluate products and nominations that are coming in through the TAG Awards.
Mhm,
But,
mhm.
truly, this is technology that was maybe initially, thought out or produced 10 years ago.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
had to continue to update it because the desires and the needs of the end user or, doctor or clinician, they've changed. And now the expectations of the patient or who it's being used on has also changed to where it's almost to the point where it's like consumer electronics, just for example.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. And I'm sure we'll get into this part of the discussion a little bit later. But when I first started out in 2007, um, it was the patient, it was the physician. Now it's moving toward the consumer,
Yeah.
and but we'll talk a little bit about that later. But yeah, there's definitely a movement there. So yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
So speaking from the MD+DI
Mhm.
side of things, talk a little bit about the publication. And you came on in 2018, so you were only there for a short while before the world changed and COVID, and
Yeah.
and had to get your sea legs pretty quickly.
Yeah, so the publication has a 40-year history, and we cater to the medtech engineer and the medtech professional. And we follow not only the finished devices, but we talk about some of the suppliers of the components for the devices as well. That's an important distinction. And what I like about MDDI is that it is dynamic and it's flexible. Uh, we just as it moved from being a print publication like in the 70s and 80s, it's now moved to becoming a fully digital publication, and we're modernizing our efforts right now.
It's that full supply chain that you talk about where it's not just the end devices, but also the suppliers and OEMs as well. It's
Mhm.
everybody in together that is your audience, which made a whole lot of sense to then, as we were looking for judges for
Yeah.
the 2025 TAG Awards for MedTech, that your name was at top of our list in terms of the reach out. So, so thankful that to have you on. When you were approached about this, what were your initial thoughts?
When I was approached about this, I was deeply honored, and it's I was also excited because oftentimes as a journalist, we kind of report the news or we report what's going on. And it's through the creation of our content that we're actually making an impact. But actually being a judge on this, looking at some of the new technologies or some of the technologies that are coming in, that is extremely exciting because we get to be more hands-on with what we write about, and we get to kind of, in my brain, you show me an application, I'm looking for trends. I'm looking for, okay, you know, what is this device really about? And how can it make an impact? Of course, we have guidelines that we're following for the TAG Awards, of course, but I'm also thinking in my journalist brain, I'm thinking, I'm looking at all of these different angles that I can report on about this or what's going into making this device. So it's excellent, and I like it, and it's also a chance to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely all for that. I'm one of those weird people that watches how the DVD, how the movies were made on well, can we say DVDs anymore? Is it just
I don't know. I
yeah,
mean, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm one of those people that looks at the behind the scenes stuff,
Yeah.
and likes to pull back the curtain because I like to have a general understanding and awareness of it.
Yeah, look, I love that element as well
Mhm,
that you bring to the whole, program because you're asking questions about why. So some of our other judges are entrepreneurs. They've brought
mhm,
devices to market. They may
mhm.
have sold out, or they've purchased one companies. We have others that are investors. Um, Mary Beth Privatera is a doctor of human factors. So,
Awesome.
it's a pretty unique group, and I think it adds perspective that to your point about trends and what's really unique and novel about it. And I love the ability of for you to bring that historical context. Not that I'm calling you old, Omar, but the
Yeah.
historical context as well. I think that is something that's truly unique as well.
Yeah, I mean, to speak on that a little bit, y I see a lot of reporting, and I see a lot of things out now where we're just looking at something for just this moment in time,
Yeah,
and that's not exactly accurate. You have to go back and you have to look at the pathology of some of these events, of some of these things that have happened in med tech, because really, really when you look at it as a whole, you kind of understand where some of the trends, where some of the things are going for these technologies. For example, we were talking about patients, right, and becoming consumers of healthcare. Well, one of the big things that's happening now is we're seeing continuous glucose monitors almost become a fashion accessory. I don't
right.
know if you've been on TikTok, but I see people doing their makeup and they're talking about their CGMs. I guess that's a trend just to do
Yeah,
your makeup while you talk about something on TikTok. Um, but continuous glucose monitors are becoming interesting. They're becoming chic. But did it really just start with CGMs? What kind of changed patients or consumers? What kind of got them more interested in healthcare? Well, if you go back to 2018 when I first started with MD+DI, you go back to Apple. Apple got clearance for an ECG on their Apple Watch. I believe it was the fourth iteration. I could be wrong on that, but um, Apple got clearance to do something that other companies were already doing, like, iRhythm and AliveCore,
yeah,
but more attention and more spotlight was put on the fact that Apple got clearance for it because it made, um, checking your heartbeat rate and checking to see checking for AFib, it made it sexier. It made it more interesting because of that Apple name. And I think that's not the first, but that's one of the biggest turning points for these technologies, in that they were no longer looked at as just something in the doctor's office or something that could be just a wearable.
Yeah.
You hear me? Just a wearable, but a cool wearable, because if Apple is doing it, if Apple has something like that, oh, I gotta get that technology because
Right.
of the branding. So I think you have to put that all into context when you see technologies like CGMs, continuous glucose monitors, coming to the forefront now, because the technology is becoming cooler. It's becoming more accepted. People wanna know their stats. And I kid you not, if this hasn't happened already, I think it will happen. I think you're gonna see designer CGMs. You heard it here first. That might sound trite, but I think that is gonna be where we're gonna end up at, not too long from now, because people wanna wear these. These things are gonna be, almost like fashion statements. And I never thought in a million years that I'd be saying something like that,
Right.
because I remember, I'll go back to when I was with Medical Device Daily. I remember when Samsung uh, dove in. I can't remember the partnership they had, but Samsung kind of jumped in, and they were working on something with healthcare. And I'll never forget the headline that my editor at the time was pitching. He was like, the unlikely players of MedTech. And there was a couple companies that like Samsung that weren't really at the time heavily invested in MedTech or healthcare, but were becoming invested in it. So, they were unlikely players back then, but now it's just normal. It's just normalized.
Well, I think you go back to your original statement about
Yeah.
the pathology of how we got to this spot, and that's part of what makes the story so interesting. So, of course, we're in a society where clickbait is part of it. You've got to have a sexy headline in order to get people to read it. But
Yeah.
once they, get beyond the headline and the, H2 there, like, and you're into the article, y- I think that your ability to share some of those, contextual elements are really interesting. It is what people are looking for,
Mhm.
and people don't want to make the same mistakes over and over. We talk about at the beginning, you and I laughing from our experience,
Mhm.
and we made mistakes that we wouldn't wish on anybody probably in our through our careers.
Mhm.
But there's an audience for that, and to your point about Apple making it sexy, they just broke the barrier, and
Yeah.
now we have the ability to create other health hacks, if you will, or wearables that never would have been conceived had Apple not made that sexy.
Yeah. 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 And just for our non-journalistic friends here, sexy means interesting. Not yeah, yeah. So
So speaking of that, that's something that you're looking for is trends all the time in your day to day right now. What are you seeing for trends in the med tech space? I mean, how much is I we're in a spot now too where where you and I were talking offline about
mhm,
tariffs and
mhm,
regulatory stuff and new administration.
mhm.
Is that all influencing what comes out, or is that something that we'll feel in a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road?
So the answer to that is yes.
Mhm.
The answer to that is yes, and I'll take that into two parts. So right now, I think with tariffs and with changing administration, everybody's running around like crazy, right? And I'm not going to get too political here. All I'm going to say is that the new administration, they're really pushing change. And the medtech industry, much like me and everybody else, a lot of people don't like a lot of change all at once. And we're seeing talk of changing of certain systems, certain processes, so, certain things that are going on. And I think right now medtech is just reacting. They're just reacting, and they're trying to figure out what they need to figure out. So there's that part of it.
Yep.
The second part of it is I think 2 or 3 years from now, we'll start to see the impact, right? We'll start to see um, the shift, whatever the shift will be right now. I don't think we can talk about we can safely say what it will be because we're on the cusp of a dynamic change. But what it'll be, I don't think it can be defined right now. So what are we hearing? Uh, when we go and we look at the earnings reports for a lot of the companies, the larger strategics that we follow, we have we get comments or we have comments like, Look, we're trying to prepare for this. We're trying to prepare for the tariffs. We're trying to prepare for any potential disruption in the supply chain, whether that be increased cost, whether that be retaliation from other countries with tariffs, what have you. The good thing is a lot of companies have plans in place since COVID to help with any type of disruption, right? The other thing we're hearing is, hey, manufacturing right now is we can't do manufacturing the way that we've done it over the last 50 or 60 years or so. We've got to look at it differently. Somebody had an awesome comment and I can't take credit for this, but someone had an awesome comment at MD&M West, and it was, America is running out of third world countries to manufacture in. That was a brutal comment, but it makes a lot of sense. And I think what companies are looking for is they're trying to mitigate risk and cost. And we just published a story not too long ago. We wrote about how Costa Rica was the new manufacturing hub. More companies are going there, um, and it was just a powerful story. But it shows you how people or how companies are preparing for what's coming. You know.
Do you think that this is an opportunity that will, breed new innovation, or, will this limit what, new technology comes out? Or I feel like it's such a dichotomy because you have AI technology moving at breakneck speed right now, but
Mhm.
you also have, all these regulations going in place that may not be as helpful to especially this industry. Do you
Mhm.
see those as contradictions, or do you think that that'll actually create a boom of new innovations?
I think forward thinking companies will thrive. And I think those companies that want to play it conservative and who are a little skittish and who are a little timid, I don't think that they will thrive in this. So to answer your question, the forward thinking companies are definitely going to push the innovation, uh, the ones that push the envelope. I think they're going and aren't afraid to take the risk and can afford to take the risk. I think they're going to do pretty well. That's how I would answer that. Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I
Mhm.
think and MedTech sort of has been, I wouldn't say adverse to forward thinking, but it's been something that it really needs to be pushed to the forefront now.
Yeah. So I'll answer. I'll speak to that. And this is the issue. I think a lot with MedTech. We're going to go back and talk about the history a little bit right now. We're going to go back a little bit. We used to have something at MD+DI called Startup Showdown, right? Where we would try to copy March Madness and have brackets with all these different startups competing with one another, for the ultimate prize. I forgot what the prize used to be because it's been a while since we did it. We sunset that program, but it was Startup Showdown, and it was you had a lot of entrepreneurs with startups that would come in, and some of them would have tech backgrounds, right? And we would interview some of these companies, right? We would like interview like the finalist or what have you. And everyone with a tech background would say the same thing. They would say, "Oh man, when I was in the tech world, I could get this thing pushed through, I could get this product out, but man, FDA, that's that's tough. I don't know what to do. There were times I was pulling out my hair.
Yeah.
You know, they're not even talking about reimbursement. I don't even talk to them about that part because I don't want to scare them. I don't want them to have heart attacks, but they're just talking about getting clearance,
Yep.
or approval in some cases. Well, here's the thing. It's very difficult for the tech world sometimes to understand what we're doing in med tech, because if they have a product and it has a problem or an issue, they just issue out a patch or an update and that's it. But when it comes to FDA and it comes to the med tech industry, you can't just do that, because your mistake not only will cost money, but it could potentially cost lives,
Right.
or serious injury. So the regulatory landscape has to be, it has to be significantly, it has to be rigorous. Point blank, it has to be rigorous, because you can't just say, I'm going to develop this device and it has a flaw, and you say, oh, I'll just push out an update, and that'll take care of it, and I'll let the end user know. No, that's definitely not the case. So I think that's why we see medtech moving a little bit slower than other industries, where there are other things that are in place for other for other industries. I think that's why medtech lags behind so much. And, rightly so, because you don't want anything, and
Right.
you want it to be thoroughly tested and thoroughly vetted. Yep.
I don't want to go under the knife in surgery and be wondering if my doctor has the right tools, or an update, if they downloaded the update last night and it restarted, like I I got to tell you, I want to be in there and be like, all right, when you knock me out, I want to wake up and feel better.
Exactly, exactly. Not worse, or not worry about, hey, this equipment, hey, we didn't do the update, and this pacemaker in you, it might be faulty. What? Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't want that at all.
No.
So yes, I can
No.
see that. Yeah.
I think that was one of the reasons I thought, that it was so important to create the whole program that we did with the Tag
Mhm.
Awards, because
Yeah.
often, there are so many, I want to say innovation awards or startup awards, or
Mhm. Mhm.
recognition for somebody that's come up with something new and novel, and to your point, they have a known flaw out of the gate, but they're working on it, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
whatever that is. And to your point, that doesn't exist in med tech, because it's got to be able to solve whatever the problem is right out of the
Mhm.
gate. And so, and it's so expensive to create a new product.
Yeah.
An opportunity to get some third party validation and recognition and eyes on a product or device or service, or platform from the likes of you and others, is extremely important and valuable. And being able to do that in an award setting, is, it has a return on investment that's huge comparative to the cost.
Exactly. Agreed. Agreed. Definitely agreed. I definitely agree with that. And it's in a um, I don't want to say confrontational, but it's not in a it's in a laid back environment, right? You get that validation, you get that feedback, valuable feedback that you would get before you even go to FDA, or while you're talking to FDA, from experts that are in the industry, that have some knowledge of this, that have a little bit of dirt under their fingernails, when it comes to med tech. So yes, I couldn't agree with you more.
What sorts of industries or technologies are you, feeling like are maybe getting underappreciated, or that are underrated in terms of reporting? It's not as sexy, so it doesn't mean it's less important, but it's not leading the daily newsletter from MD+DI, for example.
Ooh, yeah, there's a big one. There's a big one. Orthopedics, hands down, orthopedics. And ortho is one of those, it's one of those industries that, I've been covering it for, I don't know how many years now, but it hasn't been as sexy, as, when you talk about AI, or you talk about, the cardiovascular industry. It hasn't been as sexy, and it hasn't gotten the attention that it needs. And I'm saying this across the board, and we're seeing, you know, I have to go back to the pandemic. Most of those ortho procedures were called elective, they were elective procedures, or they were things that could be put off when everything was shut down. And
Right.
I think that tremendously hurt the industry for a while. Um, who wants to walk around when you need a knee replacement and be in pain, and
Right.
it affects your other,
It's not
your
elective, in
quality.
my opinion.
Yeah, well, that's another debate, but that's one of those industries that doesn't get a lot of love. And I don't know if you've been following this, but a lot of companies have been struggling with their spinal offerings. We've seen companies divest their spine businesses, right? Because they've just been underperforming. And I think that says a lot. It's not just Omar's bias for ortho or for the spine industry, right? I think it's just how this industry is looked at overall. And I think those innovations, yeah, I think that we need to put a closer eye on those, but I think it's just underreported all the way across the board. That's just my personal opinion. Yeah.
Well, that kind of leads me to my next question.
Mhm,
I'm a marketer at heart, right? A
mhm,
sales guy. Create stories to be able to connect with audiences to
mhm,
help them sell more products or add to subscriptions or whatever it is, right?
mhm,
That said, you're coming at it from, you're somebody that we're always looking for, earned press. Um,
mhm.
do you think, and we'll just use that as an example, the ortho industry, are they not doing a good enough job telling their story, or is it something that you know it doesn't sell enough newspapers, as an
Yes.
example, to lead it? Which one is it?
So I think it is a little bit, I think it's more so ortho is not doing a good job telling their story, right? And I'll give you an example. I've got a buddy from my hometown, um, pretty healthy, uh, just a weightlifter. He's trained, he's in his 40s. This guy could be on the WWE, right? He could be a professional wrestler. He's that huge. Um, he has to get a double knee replacement because he's been doing the squats and just tearing his knees up, right? Um, they told him if he gets this his surgeon told, or his doctors told him, if you get this knee replacement or these knee replacements, you'll probably never be able to play basketball again. You'll never be able to do the things that you used to do to keep in shape because you've got a lot of wear and tear on your knees. Now this guy's healthy. He could do a 5K in his sleep. Um, when you tell someone that and you talk about some of the innovations that are surrounding, the ortho space with knee replacements, and you hear stories from other patients, and sometimes they aren't the best stories, right? I think that segment really needs to get behind their story and talk about, hey, these are the benefits. These are the quality of life benefits that you can have with having these knee replacements, or you know, look at stem cell therapy. These are things that we can do to enhance your quality of life, because you're telling someone who is fully functional now, who's dealing with some pain, you're telling him that he has to stop doing the things that he loves doing to get this procedure that will pretty much keep him down for a while and he's heavily active. That's not a story that a patient wants to hear.
Yeah,
A patient, especially someone who trains at an athlete level, they want to know that they can continue doing what they're doing. They might want to take a little bit of downtime, but they want to know that, hey, I'm going to have this surgery. I'm going to pop up. I'm going to be bigger and better. And hey, I don't want a replacement that stops me from doing what I want to do, an implant. I don't want that, especially when I've quote unquote followed the rules and done everything that I need to do to be healthy. You know?
sure.
Yeah.
Well, all right, let me turn this around on you.
Go ahead. Go.
On the other side, though,
Mhm,
for your, MDDI and what you put out every day, your newsletter,
mhm,
your open rate for something negative is a lot higher than saying that, 1,000 people had really successful double knee replacement, but that one, the body rejected it. And
Yeah, yeah.
the part of it is, I mean, on your side,
Mhm,
is it's a whole lot easier to report that. You can still put in the article that there were, 100,000, positive knee replacements
mhm.
before a negative, but the headline that gets opened more is the one that's negative.
Yeah. So I think how you handle that, right, is, there's this thing where if it bleeds, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So
Yeah.
there's this thing.
That's so true. I laugh because
Yeah,
it's true.
yeah, yeah. So I think to handle that and to get that positive story out, I think what you need to do, or what, and I'm speaking about just all of the reporters, not just for our brand MDDI, but I think what you need to do is look for meaningful ways to convey the positive news, right? To convey, hey, this is a life-changing technology, and this is what it can do. This is these are the benefits. You got to put a little bit of struggle in there, say the company struggled to get this product off the market for 10 years. You got to put a little bit of tension in there because, you know, the audience, they want that tension. They want that drama. You've got to add some of those elements. That's just kind of human nature. But you know, you have to pepper that part in with, hey, this is the success. This is where we've gone and where we've gotten to. And I think it's a combination of those things that will push that narrative forward and that will ultimately, help tell the story a whole lot better.
Yeah. You're in an interesting spot because you're in the business of telling stories,
Mhm, mhm.
thinking about this industry as a whole. What do companies do well or not so well to get that earned media coverage? What are some, maybe not to get negative, but the horror stories, like they're reaching out, how do they get an opportunity to speak with you?
For me, it's tough these days now that I'm editor in chief. It's a whole lot tougher because I'm bombarded with emails every single day, and I could spend about 2 hours of my day going through and responding to emails and making sure that my responses are grammatically correct. Even using Chat GPT to respond, right? Or some generative AI program. But I think what helps, and it goes back to, I think it goes back to the foundational journalism. It's knowing your source. It's knowing who you're sending your email to. For example, you know, Nicole Osmer, president, CEO of Health and Commerce, right? I worked with her since 2000. I think it was 2008, 2010 or so.
Yep.
Anytime she would send me something, because we had that relationship, anytime she would send me something, I would ultimately respond because I know her. I had that relationship with her. We've talked. It's not a cold open. It's not a pitch. I know if she's sending me something, this is something that I can. This is something that I really can get behind because I know she's not going to waste my time, and she knows that I don't want to waste her time and promise something that I'm not going to
Well,
deliver.
and she's had quite a career too. She's gone on to start this company, and I think it was recently bought
Yeah, it was.
out
Yeah.
as well. So, I mean, it's really neat to see her go from PR rep, to owning a company to, being able to still be very much involved in what it's become. To your point, I've been fortunate to work with her in previous projects
Yeah.
as well. And same, right? I don't want to send her something
Yeah.
that she can't, feel is fully vetted.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So, and it's just been amazing to work with her. Now you ask me about nightmare stories, or what are some companies doing? This is the thing that I got a list of things, but I'll try to keep it short. So, if you're pitching something to me, or if you're pitching something to one of my writers, please, please make sure if you say that someone is going to be available, please make sure that they're available. Don't just pitch it to pitch it, right? Don't do that. Don't do that. That's one of the biggest things, one of my biggest pet peeves, especially when I was at Medical Device Daily. We used to have a comment from someone from a company, and we had a for every story, and we had a daily deadline. If that person isn't going to be available, don't even pitch it. It's not even worth it, because you put me on the hook now with my editor, and I've got a hole in the publication that I need to fill, and I'm thinking that that's going to come through, and it's not. It just isn't. So make sure if you offer someone up to talk that you have someone. The other thing is, while I don't expect you to intimately know the subject matter, if you're reading a press release back to me, if you're reading a pitch to me, if you've got me on the phone, please know how to pronounce all of the words. And I get it. Some things are hard to, some things are tongue twisters. But if you're reading it to me like you don't know what you're talking about, then I'm not going to have faith in you that you're going to be able to deliver, deliver your promises, or deliver, just deliver on the pitch. That's so those are some of the biggest things that I see. But how how you foster that relationship with me, and how I like to work with a lot of PR people. Hey, even when you don't need something, drop me a line. And I try to do that with people too, to
Yeah.
establish that relationship. And the worst thing that could happen, the worst thing that happens, and it happens all the time, is that I get a trusted PR person, and then they move to a different position, and I'm like, "Oh man, I love working with you." And we're friends on LinkedIn. I'm always sending them something on LinkedIn, and they're always sending me something to continue that relationship, because you never know when you might meet them down the line, right? And they were such a pleasure to work with. But if you don't have a relationship with me, or if you're just doing a blind pitch, that's gonna be hard, because there's a lot of stuff to cut through. We get pitches all the time, 24/7,
Yeah.
and some of them are demanding. Some of them, in tone, they just blow me away. It's like, "I haven't heard from you. You were supposed to." No, that's not how you do it? So, yeah, I
Uh,
could ramble on and on, man,
well,
about that.
I have a whole nother show we could go on for this.
Yeah, yeah.
This could be our whole, like, what not to do in PR.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
I do think that, going back to the awards for a second, it's such
Yep.
that is a great opportunity for a pitch too, is that, hey, now you're an award winner. Now you have some credibility and recognition behind you. And that is something that, piques your interest, that piques other editors' interests. What did they win the award for? Is it a real platform? Is it a real program? What was the validation that went into it? Just all the normal questions that you ask anyway. But when they've won an award or are nominated for one, that it makes it a little bit easier for you.
Agreed, agreed. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Well, what are you looking forward to most about the awards, and really, some of the upcoming events that you have?
I would say just learning more about the industry, right? Just learning, really getting hands-on with some of these technologies, and just seeing what's out there and what's being offered up, and just seeing these entrepreneurs. I'm gonna steal a quote from my 13-year-old daughter. Just seeing them cook, right? Just
Yeah.
seeing them, doing what they do best, seeing some of these startups kick butt, right? And be in an environment where they feel validated, and they don't feel heavily questioned. I definitely want to see that. Oftentimes when we talk to companies, and it can be kind of tough, but they don't let their hair down. Some of them are reading from a script, and you can tell that it's just jargon, and they're reading from it, and it comes across very robotic. And I've had that for our podcast, the Let's Talk MedTech podcast. And then I'll just kind of get them out of their comfort zone a little bit, or I'll get them into their comfort zone. I should say that. I'll just ask them this not off the wall question, but just this easy softball question that lets them know, hey, you can talk to me. This is a safe space. This is a safe place to talk. And then we'll go off on a tangent, and it will be an awesome tangent. But they'll talk about the technology, they'll talk about their experience, and you can even go back and look at past episodes of Let's Talk MedTech, right? And you can see where I asked that question, and it totally broke the ice. You
Yeah.
can't necessarily do that at the very beginning, because people's nerves, they're on edge. How are we going to
Yeah.
answer this? But once you get to that icebreaker, you know, people talk, they let information flow, and it's not presented in a way that's a gotcha
Right.
moment.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking forward to with the TAG Awards. I'm looking to really look at this technology. Of course, we have to judge it, right? But just seeing people excited and not necessarily nervous or high strung, or concerned. Am I going to do the right thing? And blah blah blah. This is a journalist looking at this. No, I think this is a relaxed environment.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
and couldn't agree more with all of those things. Heck, look at us. We're now over 45 minutes into this interview, right? We said we were gonna talk for 30, and here we are. We broke the ice a long time ago, man.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you're gracious because I was late, and we got all these family things going on. But I think when we talked about the gray hair, I think we were cruising ever since then, man. So there you go, gray hair club, right?
Yeah, that's right. Hey, anytime we get to talk about our experience and where it's led us, it's pretty neat. You and I have gone back a while,
Yeah.
and I'm thankful for this relationship. Thankful that you agreed to become a judge for this year's awards, and man, so exciting to hear about where MDDI is going, where you're going, and what's next. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Anytime, anytime.
On behalf of my guest today, Omar Ford, the editor-in-chief of Medical Device and Diagnostic Industry, you've been listening to Tagged.
On behalf of our guest today and host Justin Starbird, thank you for listening to Tagged Beyond the Award. We hope you've been inspired by the stories of innovation and leadership shared today. Don't forget to subscribe and join us for more incredible journeys behind the breakthroughs. If you or someone you know is leading the way in innovation, visit tagawards.co to learn more about how to get involved. Until next time, stay driven, keep innovating, and keep reaching for excellence.